Picking up from the last chapter, which saw Prince Harry's base, Camp Bastion, attacked by Taliban intruders, resulting in several dead and injured. Harry says that there was some talk of pulling him off the battlefield again, but the powers that be prevailed. Prince Harry lowered his head and focused on his job as a gunner. His pilot's name was David. I just find it interesting the way he describes his pilot. Look at what he says. He says more glaringly, he possessed a deeply enigmatic sense of humor. Several times a day, I'd ask myself, is David serious? Is he being sarcastic? I could never tell. It's going to take me a while to solve this guy, I think, but I never did. I think I would be correct to say that Prince Harry learned to be a team player in the army, as he describes a situation where his more experienced pilot advised using a specific kind of ammunition, but he went against that advice and then used something else, which resulted in the bad guy getting away. I love that he immediately owned his mistake and the grace the older pilot showed him by accepting his apology. Prince Harry says, David said to use the Hellfire. I was nervous about using it. However, I shot the 30mm cannon instead. Mistake. I hit the motorbike. One man down, presumably dead, but one hopped off and ran into a building. We circled, called in ground troops. You were right, I told Dave. Should have used the Hellfire. No worries, he said. It was your first time. See? The next three chapters reads like Prince Harry is an influencer promoting the British Army. He describes in painstaking detail the careful protocols used by the British Army before strikes are sanctioned. You can tell that he has the greatest respect for the army and continues to do so. This makes the defense chief Ben Wallace's criticism strange, but I guess he was afraid for his job. And if you look at the sequence of events, you can understand what happened. First, Piers Morgan tried to get the soldier who killed Osama bin Laden to criticize Harry. When that didn't work, they got a senior officer who has probably got to rely on the press to do some of his work to criticize him. And he probably did so because he had to, not because he believed that Prince Harry had done anything wrong. I tell you, figuring all this out is making me grow up myself at my big age. Just understanding the motivation behind some of the actions taken by people like the senior military officers whose actions I would have taken at face value before now has made me all the more wiser to the ways of the world. And so Prince Harry, knowing that he was going to be talking about the number of lives he had taken while on tour, he preempts his critics by notifying the public that everything he did was recorded, sanctioned, and deemed legitimate by the army. He made sure to let us know that there was no partial treatment because of his position as a prince of the realm. As I said, chess, not checkers. Prince Harry says, despite his best efforts, he never found anything irregular. I think he's referring to his squadron leader here. He goes on to say, I was part of 6 missions, which ended in the taking of human lives, all deemed justified by a man who wanted to crucify us. I deemed them the same. Before he left base, he was required to grant an interview to the media. As Prince Harry says, the chosen reporter asked what I'd done in Afghanistan. I told him. He asked if I'd fired on the enemy. What? Yes. His head went back, surprised. What did he think we were doing over here? Selling magazine subscriptions? I rolled on the floor when I read that one. I was just like, Prince Harry and his sharp mouth. But indeed, the questioning was absurd. After he left the base, Prince Harry says, I flew with my squadron to Cyprus for what the army calls decompression. I hadn't had any mandated decompression after my last tour, so I was excited, though not as much as my bodyguards. Finally, we can have a bloody cold beer. Everyone was issued exactly 2 cans, no more. I didn't like beer, so I handed mine over to a soldier who looked like he needed it more than me. He reacted as if I had given him a Rolex. And then the outcome of the interview that Harry did, which I referred to in the previous slide. The article says Taliban commanders today branded Prince Harry a naive coward for his comments comparing the decade-long conflict in Afghanistan with computer games. The reporter knew what he was doing, trying to sensationalize the article in the negative against someone who had just fought in the war for his country. Crazy. He would not be allowed to go back to the war front as everyone had gotten tired of being afraid of becoming targets just because he was with them. While he was in discussions with the army regarding his position, he was instructed by the palace to go to America on a goodwill tour to promote the rehabilitation of wounded British and American soldiers. His first stop was to New Jersey to commiserate with Governor Christie regarding the devastation caused by Hurricane Sandy. He recalls being worried that everyone would be more focused on his previous unfortunate experience in Vegas, where he had been photographed naked while playing snooker. In a way, I would say this is the one good thing the palace did for Harry in his entire life. Just making him get on with life, as this must have helped him put that past incident behind him. His next stop was to meet with President Obama and First Lady Michelle Obama. This is probably where their friendship began. And as you can see from the wild smiles, it was a very good one all around. His next stop was a visit to Arlington National Cemetery, where he laid a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. And a last stop in Colorado for the Warrior Games. Harry was so inspired by his experience at the Warrior Games that he decided he would like to create something called the International Warrior Games. He pitched his idea to the Royal Foundation Board. He was delirious with joy when they approved, but shocked to find out that William was not pleased that he hadn't taken permission from him as heir to the throne first before approaching the board. Incoming side eye. Prince Harry dismisses Prince William's behavior as sibling rivalry, but we all know that it was more than that. Prince William had been told by everyone that he was above every other person in his life, including Prince Harry, and he seriously believed that. In his mind, the only person he is below is his father. I believe he genuinely believes that the world was supposed to present itself to him, not just in theory or in formal palace speech, but in reality. In all this time, Prince Harry did not realize how seriously Prince William took his seniority in rank over him. He believed he thought of his brother as an equal, yes, an older brother, but he did not see himself as being subservient to his brother by any means. On the second thought, that must have frustrated Prince William to no end because Prince Harry has clearly shown that he can whoop his ass. And Prince Harry clearly fought for all he wanted, and there was no clear way of saying to Harry, "No, Harry, you can't talk to me that way. I'm your king." Or maybe he did say that to Harry, and that's what make him catch the whooping from Harry. Or try to say to Harry, "Oh, no, Harry, you have to ask me first. I'm your king." Shall we even go further and say that to Prince William's mind, Prince Harry was his first subject, as he could not openly act as king to any member of the public since his father was still alive, but he expected Harry to act subserviently to him as though he were a subject already. However, from what I can see, there was no formal rule book defining how the heir and the spare were supposed to behave. That must have been very confusing for both of them. From that perspective, I can see why Prince William feels so angry with Prince Harry. He probably feels that Prince Harry has betrayed him and his actions are treasonous. The same way a government would feel an agent or soldier had committed treason by resigning at his own will instead of resigning at the will of the sovereign. The problem with Prince William's position is that there are no rules in place for what he wants in this modern age. Oh, what is he going to do? In the following chapter, Prince Harry talks about his experience with panic attacks, not realizing that he was suffering from PTSD from his tours in the army and the loss of his mother in 1997. And next in the story, Prince Harry tells us how he went to Angola on an official trip. He wore the same protective gear his mother had worn when she visited Angola on her own historic trip. And then he talks about how he told his father about his panic attacks, anxiety, PTSD. It seems that this was the first time that King Charles understood the full extent of what Prince Harry was going through. He still didn't get it right in terms of the doctor he referred Prince Harry to go and see, but it doesn't look like he followed up either. Anyway, as for Prince Harry, he says his 30th birthday was approaching. And because of that, he wanted to do something significant to mark his new age. Accordingly, he decided to accept an invitation to join a trek to the South Pole to raise money for charity, walking with the wounded. However, before he left for the South Pole, he had one more task to complete. He needed to earnestly and successfully pitch his idea to Sir Keith Mills, who had organized the 2012 Olympics. Having become accustomed to Prince Harry and his ghostwriter's writing style, I took the bait and decided to look into this new character he had introduced in the book. Indeed, Sir Keith's backstory is quite inspirational. He is a successful English entrepreneur who worked in marketing and advertising for over 20 years without any formal education. He's known for inventing the Air Miles and Nectar Card loyalty card schemes. Mills was also a non-executive director at Tottenham Hotspur Football Club and received honorary degrees from the University of Bath and the University of Essex. And so that is the pedigree of person to whom he handed the Invictus Games to organize. No wonder it went so well. Great choice. Prince Harry prepared for the South Pole by spending a couple of nights in a big freezer. He talks us through his trip to the South Pole. As always, he shares the insights he gained from the trek, which was the resilience he gained from observing the strength of the wounded soldiers and the technique he learnt on the trek to overcome the challenges of the trek and then falling victim to altitude sickness. There are most pictures of Prince Harry on the trek. If you haven't already done so and you're new to this channel, please subscribe. And that he introduces the topic of the court circular. The court circular is the official listing of the previous day's royal events and is printed in the Times, the Daily Telegraph, and the Scotsman, as well as online. The practice of the royal household or court circulating a report of the sovereign's official daily engagements to the newspapers was reportedly begun by King George III in 1803 after he became frustrated at the inaccurate reporting of royal events by the national press. Today, it remains the definitive account of royal events. In Prince Harry's opinion, the court circular was nonsense. He says, but the main reason the court circular was a joke, a scam, was that none of us was deciding in vacuum how much work to do. Granny or Pa decided by way of how much support they allocated to our work. Money determined all. In the case of Willie and me, Pa was the sole decider. It was he alone who controlled our funds. We could only do what we could with whatever resources and budget we got from him. To be publicly flogged for how much power permitted us to do, that felt grossly unfair, rigged. Harry goes on to say, maybe the stress around all this stuff stemmed from the overlapping stress about the monarchy itself. The family was feeling the tremors of global change, hearing the cries of critics who said the monarchy was outdated, costly. The family tolerated, even leaned into the nonsense of the court circular for the same reason it accepted the ravages and depredations of the typhoon. Fear. Fear of the public, fear of the future, fear of the day the nation would say, okay, shut it down. In the end, he decided that even though he was not being treated well, he was content within himself because he was doing well with his work. I guess that's one way of dealing with it. The anti-monarchy group, the Republic, I discussed the court circular ad nauseum on their Twitter page. Just look at their Twitter thread. Prince William the Lazy Prince. The royals and their fans like to claim the royal family is busy. To help bolster this image, they talk about how many engagements they do each year. Before getting into what they mean by engagements and why it doesn't add up to much, it's worth noting that this is an odd way of justifying one's position. They never talk about what they've achieved, just what they've turned up to do. They never talk about work actually done, just the work of those who watch them turn up. Sometimes when we point out their engagements don't add to much, their fans will tell us there's a lot more going on away from the cameras, but that's simply not true. As you'll see, they try to pad out their engagements list with phone calls and brief Zoom meetings. They go on to say, if a phone call makes it into the official list of royal engagements, what could they be leaving out that's so important or which adds up to real work? All the engagements are listed on the court circular, and they left a link to the court circular in the Twitter thread. Oh my God. Prince Harry really said the quiet parts out loud. And then Prince Harry tells us that when Prince William and Kate moved out of Nottingham Cottage, he was able to move out of the apartment he had named Badgerset. As always, there was a controversy in the media over his description of not court. But you can clearly see the kitchen here. It's tiny for someone who is in the royal family. And that is his backyard. And just look at the room where he's standing. Like he literally has to lean his head just so that his head doesn't touch the ceiling. News has an article here. Greedy and selfish. Harry and Meghan slammed for calling the Nottingham Cottage small with really low ceilings. As though one is not able to have their own opinion about anything just because it's been given by family members. So meanwhile, I thought it might be interesting for us to have a look at the place William and Kate moved into. I mean, this is Kensington Palace, but Kate and William moved into a part of Kensington Palace, but the part they moved into within Kensington Palace boasted 20 rooms. And I thought it might be fun or interesting for my non-UK viewers to have a look at what Kensington Palace looked like. So yeah, entrance to Kensington Palace. This is the grounds of Kensington Palace, which are open to the public. This is a 3D of Kensington Palace. Let me see if I can make this work. Just yep. So you can see that Kensington Palace is huge, though I must reiterate, William didn't move into the entire thing. Let's do that again. They didn't move into the entire thing, but they have 20 rooms to themselves within this building. And these are the gardens. No, these are the courtyards area of Kensington Palace. And these are the gardens of Kensington Palace. Okay. So now compare the gardens. On the left, you've got the gardens for Kensington Palace. And then you've got the garden for Nottingham Cottage, where Harry was staying. The disparity was just too great. I mean, what kind of father allows this kind of thing to happen? A father who is more interested in being someone's tampon than being a father, right? Moving on. Prince Harry tells us that this event marks the first time he and Cressida Bonus were seen out in public. As such, this was the first time the press would have an opportunity to report on the relationship. And Prince Harry continues his discussion about his state of mind and described himself as being in the midst of a full-blown panic attack at this event. You can kind of see it in this picture, but you have to be interested and look closely. But I suppose if he didn't tell you what was going on with him, you would never guess that he was having a panic attack. He goes on to talk about how Cressida was able to open him up enough to tap into his grief, and he was able to cry about the death of his mother. Sadly, he had to break up with Cressida because he realized that Cressida did not want to have anything to do with the restraints that came with being royal. But I'm pleased that the way he described their breakup, as some people would keep you on as a placeholder girlfriend until they find someone fit for purpose. But he didn't do that. As soon as he realized that he would not be able to marry her, he told her, and they broke up. We still want to know what was on that list, Harry. Breakup. Harry and friends went to America for a friend's wedding. Oh, Harry has always looked good. Look at this now. Hmm? Into it, I discovered he did not attend the wedding alone and that he went in the company of Prince William. And actually, I discovered that this was a pattern that repeated itself throughout the book. Oftentimes, he would talk about events he went to, and he didn't disclose that Bill was at the event with him. And I think that this, for all the talk that he had invaded the privacy of the other royals who he mentioned in his book, he chose to protect Prince William's privacy a lot of the time. William going to Elvis Presley's house, and then this is another picture of them at the wedding. And Prince Harry says he learned that the main character in the phone hacking trial had been acquitted. So he says, soon after I got back to Britain, the main villain in the phone hacking scandal, Reheba Cooks, was acquitted at trial. June 2014. The evidence had been strong, everyone said. Not strong enough, the jury said. Indeed, the phone hacking case first broke wide open because of poor Millie Dowler, a teenager who'd been abducted and murdered. Reheba Cook's minions broke into Millie's phone after she'd been declared missing. They'd violated her parents at the moment of their worst pain and given them false hope that their little girl might be alive because her messages were listened to. Little did the parents know that it was Team Reheba listening. If these journalists were villainous enough to go after the Dowlers in their darkest hour and get away with it, was anyone safe? And Prince Harry continues, did people not care? They didn't care. They did not care. My faith in the whole system took a serious hit when that woman got off scot-free. I needed a reset, a faith refresher. So I went where I always went, the Okavango, and you can see the headline here. It says Rebecca Brooks acquitted. And I've outlined in red where it says, but the jury of 8 women and 3 men cleared ex-News International Chief Executive Rebecca Brooks of all crimes. After recovering from that kick in the teeth, Prince Harry talks us through his visit to the Tower of London with Will and Kate. The reason for the visit was an art installation. I remember this quite well. It was quite momentous and widely reported. But I wonder why this was worth a mention in this book. After all, this was just one of thousands of royal family engagements that he went on with Kate and William. And the first thing that caught my attention was the gentleman in the military uniform, General Dannett, who was now Constable of the Tower. This is a cushy job in itself, but I guess there had to be more for Harry to mention him at all. The job of the Constable of the Tower of London is no doubt an important job, given that the Queen's crown was stored in the Tower of London and is actually available for public view. But beyond that, General Dannett, who was a former Chief of Staff, British Army, retired. Guess what he does now? Into it, I discovered he's now a member of the House of Lords. The House of Lords! The House of Lords is one of 2 chambers of the UK Parliament, the other being the House of Commons. Its primary function is to act as a revising chamber for legislation passed by the House of Commons. scrutinizing and amending bills before they can become law. Its members, known as peers or lords, are appointed by the monarch on the advice of the Prime Minister. The House of Lords also plays a role in debating important issues and holding the government to account, but it does not have the same legislative power as the House of Commons. And it is clear that the royal family appoints its loyalists to important positions of power within the country to continue to protect their interests. And so, when they say there is a so called separation of powers in the UK, it's quite clear to see that there are no separation of powers at all. You've got the judges intertwined with the legislature, intertwined with the executive. This so called separation of powers is just an illusion. It brings to mind when Harry demanded to know who were the members of Raven, the body who decides who gets the elite seat that Harry was asking for. And it was discovered that the senior officers within the royal family staff were the same members of the Raven. Same. Oh my God. Anyway, a picture of the crown, Queen Elizabeth's crown. This is her wearing the crown. And the other odd thing I noticed in the picture, whether consciously or unconsciously, do you notice that they are walking in order of rank? In fact, you know what? There's just so much to dissect in that picture that I'll stop at these 2 points. That of General Danet and the fact that they're all walking in rank. And can you see he announced to the world that he will be creating the Invictus Games? I'm going to stop here because the next bit of the part 2 of despair was actually longer than I thought it was going to be. If I had to do it all, the video would be as long as an hour and a half, and I just didn't want to do that because my thoughts on this part is that Prince Harry did a good job of honestly describing his growth journey. He managed to find ways to navigate his life, seemingly without any real guidance. He succeeded in finding healthy ways to elude the press, which must have helped him a lot. And the passage of time brought up the questions of what he would do with his own life and when he would settle down. It's clear he remained optimistic, even when he struggled to find his place in life and while trying to figure out why he was having panic attacks. Video, please like, subscribe, and share the video. I'm almost at 1,000 subscribers. Please support my channel by subscribing. Thank you for watching. Until the next one, bye.